All right, moving on. We finished proving ground number 2. We posted our 3 thumbnail quick sketches for our concept. Mine is an Earth Day achievement badge. And then we posted a reply to another student, right? Indicating a clear preference for one of their approaches. And then we have to think, how do we now move on to assignment 4? And the first thing we need for assignment 4 is what's called a refined sketch. Now, how is a refined sketch different than those thumbnail sketches? The refined sketch is going to show you where the black shapes are, right? So my idea over the summer was kind of influenced by flash art. And I was saying like Japanese signage and things as well, and public art. And this is just all too nitpicky, right? So I'm going to edit that. And I still want it to be kind of a recycling hero achievement badge. And I might just make it way more specific, or generalized rather. So it's just an Earth Day achievement badge, right? But mine is focusing more on recycling. And the first thing I need is a refined sketch that shows me the approach. So the actual best example of refined sketches is going to be in the past instructor and student example. So again, remember that forking bull example. This is what my refined sketch became. So it makes the fork really clear, makes the bull really clear. It doesn't have a lot of that other distraction, right? And then this was the black shape vector that came of it, and then this was the color variation that came of it. Here's one that was an Earth Day one, from years past, where the Earth is done kind of like a puppet on strings. The sketches, this was a positive negative sketch. You see how the empty space kind of flows through and makes the globe. The globe only looks like a globe because the strings are hanging the land masses in the right place, like a shattered egg. And then the color version, very simple. Here's a dynamic one, the refined sketch for the Twitter bird being made extinct. And then you have to choose where the black shapes are going to go. And then the color variation. And then this is one using existing logos from different oil companies and making something new out of it, right? But this is still fairly dynamic in the way it moves the eye. So, how do I make my refined sketch based on those sketches I posted? Well, I am going to do it digitally, and I have the tablets open if you want to do it this way as well. I'm going to open up my sketch, which will go into my assignment 4 folder within my master folder. We want to keep remembering how to stay organized. And this thumbnail sketch is really for proving ground number 2. All right, and now that one's done and online, so it's orange. So I'm going to open this up in Photoshop, our raster program. Even though this is a vector assignment, I'm going to do a refined sketch either by hand with like an ink pen or in Photoshop. And I'm going to pick the approach I think I want to refine, and it's going to be this one, the positive negative. And you can use the input you've gotten from your classmates to help you decide, help you figure out how to improve it. Make it a little bit bigger. This is just low quality screen resolution, that's fine. Okay, now I need to turn this into black shapes. So what do I mean by that? We're going for a black shape symbol, like the CBSI, like the USA, like the key. And so black shape needs to be not based on outlines. It needs to be solid. So if you take this past example, which is a pretty fussy symbol for like a Renaissance style Nico the Nighthawk, this was the lines of the refined sketch. But then that's not enough for a refined sketch because you have to decide, well, which ones are going to get filled in. And so these same lines can be filled this way or this way. Right? Your refined sketch has to kind of define it. Where are the blacks going to go? And I chose this way, and then this was the finished vector, and then this was the color variation. Again, thinking this, not this. So, right now I just have outlines. So what am I going to do? I'm going to make a new blank layer on top, and I'm just going to use my brush tool. I'm going to use the defaults with black in the foreground. Right? I'm going to use my brush at a 90% hardness, pressure sensitive. And I can draw this, which I want to because it's like an achievement badge. It's kind of funky and fun. Or I can composite it. I could even use the shape tools if I wanted to, right? But I can make little corrections to it as I go. Like if I don't like this edge, I can use my eraser, or I can use my lasso. All those compositing skills still come into play. Take that out, and then I can repaint. Like that. And now that I've made that shape, what that is going to be, I'm going to use my paint bucket, is just solid black. Right? So I can do it that way, or, because I'm doing positive negative, I'm not trying for central symmetrical, right? I could also composite it. Right? So this is hand sketching my refined sketch. Or I could composite it by finding on Pixabay, on somewhere else, like a flower, simple shape, daisy. And because I don't want photographs, I'm going to limit it, not to all images, but just to illustrations. And the color, maybe just black. And let's see, so I could composite it with this, or I could try to find something. And I could use Google Images as well, as long as I'm really transforming it. But you can see how that's not too helpful to me. Right? And that's an AI. Remember, AI ones will have a little robot in the corner, and they're not going to be as clean and controllable. So you can use them as inspiration, but I wouldn't composite with them. There's 21 pages. And, you know, sometimes, like you found, in compositing, we don't find the references we want. But it might inform what we do. Yeah, I'm getting pretty far afield here. So maybe I just use my vector shape tools that we learned for exercise 2. So maybe I go to the ellipse and I say, well, I want this to just be really clean. So I'm just going to use that and then duplicate it, Command J, stay on the move tool, put a bunch of them around, Command J, Command J, Command J. And I really only have to do half of it if I want it to be really clean. So you get to decide if you want really clean vector design or not, right? Okay, so I've done that. Now I'm going to take all of those, hold down Shift, merge them all together with Command E. Now I can transform it, all these clean circles, right? And I can shape it into what I want. Maybe I even warp it. Now I'm just looking at the outside edge, but I want it to be really clean. So what would my next step be? I'm going to take my guide, this is to composite it, and find the middle of it, right? Then I'm going to use my rectangular selection, grab it, duplicate that. Oh, I think I have to rasterize it first because it's stated vector shape. Okay, now I'm going to flip one of them. Command T. Oh, not that one. Sorry, I'm going to duplicate it again. Duplicate it, and then flip it. Command T, flip horizontal, and then move it so they line up on that line. So this is the composited way to do that shape at the back. And in that case, I might even like the shape in the middle, but what am I comparing it to? I'm comparing it to this. So you decide whether you want it kind of hand-drawn, whether you want it cleaner, whether you composite it, whether you use vector shapes to make it. I actually like the hand-drawn a little bit more for this approach. So now what's next? Now I need these shapes. So this isn't supposed to take long. You're just supposed to really understand what it looks like. So I'm going to make it really basic. I'm just going to use my compositing skills and select these out. So I'm going to rough cut around them. Duplicate it, Command J, and then put those on top of my hand-drawn one there. And then I'm going to use my magic wand with contiguous turned on and try to trim around the sketch. I'm in the wrong layer. There we go. Okay, now I get to clean it up. So how do I clean it up? I'm going to use my paintbrush again, and I'm going to swap the foreground and background. So now I'm painting with white. I just want a rough idea of this placement of these things. I want to make sure this looks like a pointing finger, even though it's curving. And I can think, do I want a thumb or not, right? And I squint and I think, no, I like it better without. And I want the bottle to be clean, so I'm going to switch back to black, and then I paint here. And before computers, this is how we really refined graphics. You actually paint them with black and white paint, what's called graphic paint. And I actually, in the 90s, learned type design this way. So you paint it on illustration board with Pelican black, and then Pelican white, you paint around it until you get the perfect forms. And then it gets photographed onto a plotter to be turned into film work. And this goes on and on from there. And your refined sketch is where you're trying to get all the proportions. It doesn't need to be perfectly clean, but it needs to give you a clear sense of where you're going next. So, what's great about this is I did this on 2 different layers, so now I can just move this to where I think it looks best as a positive negative. And I can fill it all, or I can use image adjustments if I want to clean it up to be brighter and darker. So up its levels. And that will help me see if I need to clean it up anywhere. Now this is low resolution. This is just from a screen grab. So it's only 72 pixels per inch. And it's at 6.7 inches by 11 inches. But this is enough to inform my vector. But it's silly not to take advantage of